Hello, everyone. We'll begin. Oh, I think it's live. 1 second. I just wanted to give some instructions. Okay. So we will be starting in about 7 minutes. So we're going to start with Dr. Porter. He is going to be introducing Ben Crump. Then Ben Crump will then come onto the screen. He will speak, and then he will take it back to, I think, oh, sorry, 1 minute. Okay, so it will take us back to Dr. Porter. So Ben Crump, once you're done, you would just need to mute your screen. And then when you mute your screen, then you can go ahead and leave at that point. And then Pastor Porter will come back onto the screen, and then he will introduce the rest of the panel. And then at that point, then the panel can all unmute themselves. And then we will go into the gallery view and all of the panel will be up. If everyone can just go ahead and let me know that they heard me and that everything is good.
From Ben Crump, we heard you. How long do you want him to speak? Hello?
Oh, yeah, it's in my purse.
Okay.
This is
All
this
right,
is Dr.
so,
Weber. I heard you.
I do hear Ms. Clark.
From Ben Crump's office, we heard you.
This is Dr. Weber, Secretary of State. I heard you.
Pardon me? Sequette Clark, I heard you. From Ben Crump, then you clicked out.
Okay.
You're unmuted. No.
Damn. It's out of pocket.
So if we can have everyone mute their mics.
Welcome back to our NAN Sacramento Rise Up Conference. Wasn't that an awesome panel discussion showing truly Black girl magic with Margaret Fortune? Congrats to you on your inaugural broadcast of Let's Talk Black Education, happening here right at the conference, premiering here right here. So we are so glad about that. And we're about to go into another topic, another panel that's going to discuss a necessary and relevant topic that's in our newspapers in front of us on social media. And we have some of the best that are doing it right now who are on the front lines to discuss police reform panel. Where are we now? Where are we now? My name is Dr. Tecoy Porter, Senior. I'm the president of the NAN Sacramento chapter, also the senior pastor of the Genesis Church. And I'm glad to have with me today to discuss this important topic, none other than our friend and brother, attorney Benjamin Crump, Dr. Shirley Weber, California Secretary of State, Assembly Member Mike Gipson, who represents the California District 64th District, and Ms. Sequette Clark, President and CEO of IAMSAC, the mother of Stephon Clark, a mother of the movement. Again, the overall goal of this panel is to discuss the progress made socially and legislatively on police reform in California and nationwide. And we're going to discuss what are the next steps for further police reform. First up, I want to introduce our friend and brother and give opening remarks, Attorney Ben Crump, who has been on the front lines of the majority of these cases, such as Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, Stephon Clark, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and the list goes on. Most recently, Dante Wright in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. Also on Andrew Brown Jr. that just happened last week, North Carolina. You have been dubbed, Reverend Al Sharpton has dubbed you the Black America's Attorney General. And we want to thank you for joining us. We know you can't stay for the whole panel, but would you mind opening up with us up with your remarks on today?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Porter. It is an honor to be with you all at the National Action Network chapter there in Sacramento, California for your Rise Up conference. I am so grateful to always sharing these important conversations with Sequette Clark, who has been able to transform her pain into a purpose. And she continues to amaze me every time, whether we're speaking at the National Action Network Convention in New York, Reverend Porter, or whether we're talking, doing interviews about why her son, Stephon Clark, life matters. And I'm equally honored to be with your great elected leaders. I've so often heard Dr. Weber champion the cause for our children and their right to everything that America promises its citizens. It is just a wonderful, wonderful occasion to speak truth to power. And that's what we have to always do, speak truth to power. And as I think about this past year, when we were in a global pandemic, when everything has shut down in America, seems like except implicit bias and police brutality. And we saw it, and I talked to Stephon Clark, Stephon's brother, about many of these cases as they were happening. We saw Ahmaud Arbery be lynched for jogging while black in February of 2020. Then we saw Breonna Taylor be executed in the sanctity of her own home when the police busted in her front door at 1 a.m. With unconstitutional, unjustifiable, and an illegal no-knock warrant, and mutilated her body with 6 bullets while she was practically naked. And then we saw George Floyd literally be tortured to death while he narrated the documentary of his own death, saying, "I can't breathe," 28 times, and saying, "Tell my mama I love her. Tell my children I love them," and called out for his mama, even though Reverend Porter, she had been dead 2 years before this tragedy took place. But before all of that took place, you in Sacramento dealt with the tragic killing of Stephon Clark at the hands of your city police department. And in many ways, when we ask where we're at now, Reverend Porter, we're at this point nationally trying to get this George Floyd Justice and Policing Act passed, following the examples of what you all did in California with getting the Stephon Clark law passed. That was so landmark in not only its definition, but in its scope. What do I mean? When you all say that the police can only use deadly force after they have, they can only engage in deadly force after they have tried everything else. That was revolutionary, because what that did for us constitutional and civil rights lawyers was to be able to challenge the police, to ask the question, well, did you try verbal commands? Did you try tasers? Did you try call for backup? Did you try to set up a circumference? Did you try all of these things before you made the decision to take yet again another unarmed Black man's life? And so, in many of the things that we're advocating in Minneapolis and the state of Minnesota regarding George Floyd, many things that we're advocating in Louisville and the state of Kentucky in the aftermath of the killing of Breonna Taylor are the same things that you all were successful in getting passed in your state of California. And we're also articulating the same arguments you made before the United States Senate, because California Congresswoman Karen Bass and the Congressional Black Caucus was able to get the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act passed in the House of Representatives. And the question remains, can they get meaningful legislation passed in the United States Senate, not watered down legislation? And Reverend Porter, as Reverend Al Sharpton and I discussed, we have to let the legislators know in Washington, D.C., the same thing that Stephon Clark's family let them know in California, that this legislation has to be meaningful because their family's blood is on this legislation. And if you're going to have legislation with their name on it, then it has to be meaningful. It has to address qualified immunity. It has to, because I am telling you all, qualified immunity, 96% of the time allows police officers who unjustifiably kill unarmed Black people to escape with no accountability. The fact that the United States Supreme Court has said in Graham v. Connor and Gardner v. Tennessee that all the police have to say to get a free get out of jail card when they shoot and kill a person, especially a marginalized minority, all they have to say is 3 little words: I felt threatened. I felt fear. And the Supreme Court said, Oh, you can't Monday morning quarterback the police. You can't second guess them. You were not there, even though we're at the paramount of technology we've never seen in our life that captured video and audio and images every step of the way. And so in the face of all this objective evidence, they still say, regardless, we have video after video showing them shooting black men in the back. Well, the police said they felt in fear of their life, so we're just dismissing the case. And as Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee and I often discuss, when we say qualified immunity has to be limited, we're not saying that we don't want the police to have their day in court. We want them to have every right to due process as every other American citizen. But what we are saying is we want the Black families whose loved ones have been killed by the police to have their day in court too. And let a jury decide whether it was reasonable or not, this use of force. Because what happens is we don't even get our day in court. We don't get our constitutional rights. We don't get our due process of the law because a judge dismisses our case before we can even get there. And it boggles my mind, Dr. Weber. It boggles my mind how it seems that the police shoot first and ask questions later when it comes to unarmed Black people. So much, in fact, that Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor said that as long as we continue to allow this shoot first, think later mentality, it makes the Fourth Amendment ring hollow against unlawful searches and seizures. The fact that young white men can be confirmed mass murderers and the police still take them alive. Think about it. The Parkland shooter in the high school in Florida shot 34 people, killing 17 high school students. The police followed him for hours and they took him alive. Right. And then you think about this most recent young white man in Atlanta, Georgia, who went into the Asian spa and shot multiple people. The police followed him for hours, even across state lines from Georgia into Florida, and they took him alive. And worst of all, Reverend Porter, was the young white supremacist, Dylan Roof, who killed 9 of the most innocent people you could ever find in that church in South Carolina. I mean, it was so heartbreaking that he testified during his police interview that I felt bad about killing them because they were so nice to me. But the police not only followed him across state lines from South Carolina into North Carolina, when they took him alive, they took him to Burger King to get a burger and fries. But yet Stephon Clark, as you all know, running his grandmother's backyard, hadn't killed anybody. They shot him in the back. Anthony McLean in Pasadena, California, literally ran out of his shoes trying to run from the police. You look at the body cam footage, you see he runs out of his shoes, but yet they still shoot him 2 times in the back. You remember Jacob Blake Jr. in Kenosha, Wisconsin, running away from the police, trying to get to his 3 young boys who were in the car to get them out of a traumatic situation. The police officer grabs him from behind, grabs his t-shirt and shoots him 7 times, point blank range, in front of his 3 young sons, ages 3 years old, 5 years old, and 8 years old, and paralyzes him. We can only imagine what his sons would think, how they will have psychological problems forever at the very people who are supposed to protect and serve them, shooting their father, having deliberate indifference, whether he lives or dies. Because how, Sequette, can you care about whether a person lives or dies when you shoot them that many times at point blank range? And the list goes on and on. How they shot Laquan McDonald 14 times in the back in Chicago, how they shot Walter Scott in the back in South Carolina, how they shot Terrence Crutcher in the back walking away with his hands up slowly in broad daylight, and the white policewoman shot him saying she feared for his life. I mean, we can't continue to have these two justice systems in America, one for white America and one for Black America. And you see all these times where they continue to shoot Black people in the back. I wrote a book called Open Season, Legalized Genocide of Colored People. And chapter 2 of my book is entitled, The Police Don't Shoot White Men in the Back. And the reason I entitled the chapter like that, because I knew it was provocative, but it's also true. The police don't do that to our white brothers and sisters. But them shooting a Black person in the back, running away from them, they do it so frequently, it's like it's a cliche now in America. What is it about Black men running away from the police that makes them fear us so much? I think it's one of the most cowardly things you can do, not just one of the most unjustifiable things. It's a coward to shoot a man in the back. The old cowboy movies and the Westerns taught us that from little children, that there was no respect or honor in shooting a person in the back. But yet, right here in North Carolina, we are fighting to get the video released in Andrew Brown's case, where you had 3 officers walking with assault rifles, shooting, spraying the back of his automobile with bullets, and he drives away from them, not being of any threat to them, not putting them in any violence. He's driving away. And, you know, Reverend Porter, they were there to serve a search warrant. A search warrant. It is ridiculous why they felt they had to use that type of force to serve a search warrant. Why they had to shoot him, putting a bullet in the back of his brain, killing him, a father of 7. And yet they won't release the video because they know the video will show the truth that this was yet again another unjustified, unnecessary, and senseless killing of a Black man, not less than 48 hours after the Chauvin verdict was delivered and for the killing of George Floyd. And we believe, Dr. Weber, that we had turned the corner, where we were brought back to reality, that even though the Chauvin verdict may represent a new precedent, we still got a lot of fighting to do to make sure we prevent these unjustifiable, unnecessary killings, that we still have to do everything in our power to get federal police reform so we won't have arbitrary decisions by different states, because the issue is federal. It's happening in every state in America. They killing Black people unjustifiably. And so every day we don't pass this law, I fear that there would be another Black person killed in America unjustly by the police. So we have to do everything in our power to learn from what you all did there in California and learn how to make sure we speak truth to power to get legislation that matters so we can prevent these killings. I will say these 2 things in conclusion. we always have to hold a mirror to America's face to expose the hypocrisy. The fact that we say it's about training and de-escalation and all of this stuff, what it's really about is implicit bias. The police can de-escalate just fine when they want to. We saw that on January 6, 2021, when you had those white nationalists attacking the United States Capitol, the citadel of our democracy. And it was like they treated them with kids' gloves. And you just compare in your mind for a second how they treat the Black Lives Matter protesters exercising their First Amendment rights, where you have these young people saying that it was wrong how you killed Stephon Clark. It was wrong how you kill, George Floyd. It was wrong how you kill Anthony McClain. They tear gas them, they shoot them with rubber bullets, and they arrest them, and they charge them with felonies. And if you're living in the state of Florida and Texas or Oklahoma, they're trying to pass anti-protest legislation that say when you're doing your First Amendment rights to protest, that it is legal for somebody to drive their car through the crowd and that they would give them immunity. And so you think about how the police are killing us with impunity based on implicit bias. But what is always far more troubling to me is how the courts are killing us legally with impunity by saying everything that they do, all the racism and discrimination and oppression is legal. Well, we have to tell them over and over again what Martin Luther King said in the letter from the Birmingham jail. Just because they say it's legal, that still doesn't make it right. That he said everything Hitler did to the Jews in Germany, they said was legal, but that didn't make it right. Everything that America did during slavery, they said was legal. Assembly member Gipson, but that didn't make it right. He said segregation was legal in America, but that didn't make it right. So when they try to tell us how they killed Breonna Taylor, it was legal, I submit we must proclaim that still does not make it right. When they tell us how they shot and paralyzed Jacob Blake Jr. in Kenosha, Wisconsin was legal, Stephon, we have to proclaim to them that still does not make it right. And when they try to say how they shot Stephon Clark in his grandmother's backyard and say that was legal, we have to proclaim in unison that that does not make it right, because we have to pass this legislation, because we have to have better policing, a more just America, where Ahmaud Arbery can run free and not be lynched for jogging while black. Not in 1940 and 1950, Brother Gipson, but in 2020, they lynched him. And we saw it on video with our own eyes. We have to have a better, more just America, Dr. Weber, where Breonna Taylor gets to sleep in peace at night and not be executed with 6 bullets in her body while she is practically naked. And Reverend Porter,
yes, sir.
We have to have a more just, a better America, where George Floyd gets an opportunity to take a breath without a police officer putting his knee on his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds, and where all of our children have an equal opportunity at life and liberty in the pursuit of happiness, whether they're African American, Hispanic American, Asian American, or Native American. All our children should have an equal opportunity at the American dream. That's why we must pass this legislation. And that's why we applaud you all in the state of California for giving us the framework to make this federal legislation. Dr. Porter, you know I love you, and I thank you for your leadership, brother. I know they're pulling me away saying I got to go to this hearing, but I thank you always for your great inspirational leadership.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It's been a pleasure serving with you across the nation, here in Sacramento and in Minneapolis, and standing with you. We are praying for you. You're on the front lines. Thank you for your words and your relevancy, sir. We're going to jump into our next panelist here that really don't need any introduction. I'm going to go to Dr. Shirley Weber. I want to first say congratulations to you, madam, for being named the California Secretary of State, the first Black woman to hold this position in our great state. But before then, you were the chair for our California Legislative Black Caucus. And as Ben Crump mentioned, you led the way on landmark legislation in regards to police reform here with the passing of AB 392, the Stephon Clark law. I'm going to open it up to you and ask you how in your assessment has police reform moved forward since its signing into law?
Well, thank you, Dr. Porter. And it's always good to be here with you. And of course, we're looking forward to you being in Sacramento with us on the legislature. We look forward to that opportunity for you to be a part of the group that's hopefully making these laws that will change California and change the nation. Have to thank NAN and PICO and all of those social justice organizations that were standing with me, not only in 392, but also in 953, a few years before that, to basically give us the racial profiling issue and data in California. And of course, those of you who are helping us with 3070, as well as with reparations, and it goes on and on. I'm honored to be your Secretary of State. And as I told folks when I decided to assume this responsibility and hopefully open up opportunities in the area of voting and social and equal rights for all of Californians, that my passion for social justice still remains. It just has a larger and more statewide platform that we can begin to address these issues. You know, when I think about it, and I was so pleased to hear Attorney Crump in his assessment, because those are things that we've said so many times, that this nation has the capacity to do whatever it chooses to do. The fact that it has decided not to treat us justly and equally is historic. Because it's been 400 years that this has been in the making and consistently in the making. So that when we look at the challenge and we create these laws that really give us mechanisms and tools to be used, we know they'll have to be used, that we'll have to litigate every step of the way, because they have no intentions of ever treating us fairly in terms of law enforcement. I continue to be appalled when I'm interviewed by the press regarding what law enforcement has said about 392 and has said about 953 and said about the chokehold law, and on and on and on, where they have just flicked it off like it's a fly, that it really doesn't matter, in order to create the impression that that there's some omnipotent behavior on the part of law enforcement, that they don't have to listen to us, that they can continue to attack our members as they do. They'll attack, and spend millions of dollars attacking me, and then they discovered that was futile. So they decided now, after my daughter ran, they decided to spend a whole bunch of money attacking her, only to discover that the Weber brand in San Diego is pretty good. That what we have tried to do in San Diego and across the nation is to stand tall and stand firm, and to not abandon our people and the commitment that's there, and to bring others along with us in the process. And so They gave up on me. They tried on her, and she won in the primary. So that didn't help them a whole lot in terms of trying to get folks to cross over and to defend them. But what we see is the positive thing I see is that we have in California have empowered the rest of the nation to believe that change is possible. And that becomes important because prior to 392 and really prior to 953, you know, the governor had said it would take an act of God to sign 593. And I think you were in that room when all the ministers was there and he didn't know that God had come with them.
Come on
in fact, they told me afterwards when he said it'll take an act of God for me to sign this bill. They said, Dr. Weber, he didn't know that we brought God with us in that room. And it took the ministers across the nation from all of the religions to really protest for 3 straight weeks in front of the Capitol and threaten a hunger strike to move the governor. And that's why I want to emphasize is that, you know, we can come up with these bills and we can come up with these things and we can fight these battles, but it really is a community that's knocking on the doors of the legislature saying, you got to vote for this bill. It's really the people in their neighborhoods. We had folks going into the different communities that they lived in and pulling out legislators, whether they were Democrats or Republican, and telling them that they needed to vote for 953, telling them they need to vote for 392. I mean, this is the power that we have had to get. And as a result of getting these bills passed this session and in prior sessions, and then, you know, culminating with the passage of reparations, the state getting reparations, it has empowered us as a community to believe that change is possible. And that is important because when I came into the Capitol, talking about the police, they believed they could kill everything that had anything to do with them. That year that we passed 953, they killed about 20 or 40 bills dealing with body cameras. And you probably remember that. They killed every bill that came forward to put any restrictions on body cameras. And the funny thing and the kind of ironic is they forgot about 953. And when they woke up, 953 was in the Senate. And they discovered, oh my God, the most important bill of all that dealt with them recording every stop they had to make and establishing the RIPA committee and getting this data out to us. They forgot about the bill. And we were able to push that bill through. The community demanded it and protest for it because they had killed every body camera bill. So when I look at where we are, I'm not putting any credibility into, we can pass laws and we're gonna get those laws passed and we're gonna continue to fight. I'm putting my hope in the community's ability to continue to fight with those laws, to take them to court, to make sure that we demand things at the local level. I'm excited that Sacramento is taking 392 and strengthening it in Sacramento, you know, fighting back and strengthening it. We Los Angeles took 392 and said, okay, this is what we got to do. Now we need to strengthen it. We need to add more to it. We need to define it more. So LA is taking it, San Francisco, all of us, and the nation is now looking down and said, oh my goodness, you know, they didn't think we could pass 392. None of them weighed in to help us pass that bill. And so once it passed, now it becomes an example of what is possible. Because what happens is that we had been so beat down for years with law enforcement and the kinds of things that couldn't happen. And as long as they said, I'm afraid, I'm a this, I'm a that, we didn't believe there was an opportunity for us to grow. Now we have these tools with us that deals with chokeholds. We have the tools that deal with racial profiling. We have all of these things that are available to us. We can now, and as a community, we must use those to strengthen our position in our local communities and strengthen our position in the state. So I'm excited about what we're doing. I don't think law enforcement is going to give up until they're gone, until we get some new folks in there who are committed to making that change. And that's the next phase. We're looking at the duty to intervene. We're looking at decertification. And you need to understand, despite all this conversation about, oh, it's always a bad apple in the bunch and it's always da, 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 da. And I remember this brother said on TV the other day, said, if you keep seeing these bad apples around a tree, you need to look at the tree. He said, something is wrong with the tree because this is not just one apple. He said, something is wrong with the tree. And that is so true. So we began to look at this. We got to talk about decertification. They're fighting that when they've said over and over, oh, it's only the bad apples. So we said, okay, let's get rid of the bad apples. They don't want to get rid of the bad apples because they know the bad apple is in the tree, you know? And so when you begin to ask these questions, we then have to be even more organized because they're not going to give it up. People don't give up power without a struggle. We know that. and they're not going to give up this authority. And we're going to have to talk about decertification and finding different ways in which we select police officers if we have, and on and on and on, because the system has supported them in such a way that it has given them the belief that they have the right to this, and they're going to fight every step of the way, and they are. They're fighting all of the bills that we have right now before the House. All of the bills that they claim they would be agreeable to, they're not agreeable to. And so we are going to have to fight for decertification. We're going to have to fight for duty to intervene. And it goes on and on and on. And every member who has introduced a bill has been under attack. We know that every last one of them has been under attack. But nonetheless, they have moved forward. Why? Because you've been there for them. So as I look at this, I'm going to stop it because I know we got other panelists. But you know what 392 did for Sacramento in terms of us pushing forward with the Stephon Clark law, and his family's effort and support was there, and it fueled the energy that went around with what we see with the most recent trial and other kinds of things that we have somehow believed could never happen in this country. They're happening, but don't go asleep, because they will sacrifice Chauvin in order to save themselves and make themselves look fair and just, and not deal with all the other issues. So while we take that victory lap for a minute, don't go asleep, because that is not the whole case. It ain't even a piece of the case. We still have a long way to go to basically get the kind of justice and treatment that is so essential that everybody else can get, and that they know how to do what they choose not to give it to us. Thank you so very much. And I'll be around for our questions and answers, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Weber, for your courage, your insight, your tenacity to get the job done around this. Speaking about going after the tree, we have Assemblyman Mike Gipson, who's been doing just that here, and who's been on the front lines in the fight for police reform here in our California legislature, and has introduced a number of bills, including AB 1196, which banned the same chokehold used on George Floyd by Derek Chauvin last year. Welcome, Assemblyman Gipson. What other police reform bills are you and your fellow legislators introducing in California right now?
Thank you very much, Pastor Porter. First of all, let me say thank you very much for convening this conference, Rise Up. I think it's absolutely befitting, because we need to rise up. I want to certainly thank Attorney Crump for his articulation of the fight that's before us. And thank also the Reverend Al Sharp. I'm a firm believer that without a vision, the people perish. And certainly Reverend Al Sharpton has great vision. That's the reason why he created the National Action Network, because he knew that it would be days like this that we need an organization to stand in the gap and stand up for people who can't stand for themselves. He knew there would be days for people who society have labeled invisible, but for an organization to stand up in spite of the issues that these communities are facing, and to stand up with a loud voice. And so I'm very grateful for the visionary of Reverend Al Sharpton and certainly the California chapter of this great organization. And I also want to thank you, Pastor Porter, as Dr. Shirley. I don't know why y'all put me up right after Dr. Shirley Weber. I'm just not worthy. It's tough. It's it's almost like coming up after a preacher who just preached the house down. And what can you say but take an offering up and just move on? But anyway, Pastor Porter, thank you so very much for your great leadership, for standing and being a great beacon of light as well as hope. Not only representing the National Action Network, but also the Sacramento community. As Dr. Weber said, we need your voice, we need your energy here in Sacramento, in the other house. And so I am Mike Gipson, and glad to be here. I represent the 64th State Assembly District. And I want people to understand, I represent Watts, Willowbrook, where I was born and raised. I represent Compton, Carson, Wilmington, North Long Beach, Linwood, Gardena, and also the Torrance area. And I am also a former police officer. Let me say that again. Now, did he just say what I just said? Yes, I'm a former police officer. I want people to understand that. Yes, I am the Assembly Democratic Caucus chair. Yes, the chair of the Select Committee on Police Reform, but I also stand as a Black man. Not only as a Black man, but as a father and a husband and a grandfather. A father whose son was shot walking down the street. He and his fiance on April the 5th of 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, who cares about, not only de-escalating violence in our community, but also making sure that we hold law enforcement accountable. And so I'm carrying a bill which is very near and dear. Is to pick up the work that we've done when we did Assembly Bill 1196, and the National Action Network was there, standing shoulder to shoulder at every hearing when that bill was went through the legislative process here in Sacramento. You were there, you were standing, you allow your voices to be heard, you refused to be silent on the things that matter, as Dr. King said. So you were there. And certainly Dr. Porter was there when we did the George Floyd Bill 1196, banning chokeholds and carotid artery restraints in the state of California. And so you may ask the question about this young man that's behind me. It says, "Justice for Angelo Quinto." Somebody may say, who is him? Well, I'm glad you asked. This man was 30 years old. 30 years old, living right here in California, lived in Antioch, California. And on December the 26th, he was having, as a Navyman, he served our country in the United States Navy, was having a breakdown, a mental crisis. His family called 911 to ask the authorities, the police, the people who serve and protect us, to come to try to de-escalate the situation that was going on in the home. The mother was there, the sister was there. The police came and they didn't de-escalate, they escalated the situation that went on in the home. As we know that George Floyd, the officer, put his knee on George Floyd's neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. Well, Angelo Quinto had an officer's knee on his neck for five minutes. For 5 minutes. And you can't help but understand, when you can't breathe, you are saying you can't breathe. Attorney Crump said that George Floyd said 28 times, "I can't breathe." In case you didn't hear me the first time, he said it 27 more times right after he said it the first time. And Angelo Quinto said, "I couldn't breathe either." And he was killed in front of his mother and his sister on December the 26th of 2020. My bill went in effect on January the 1st, 2021. We're carrying a bill, Assembly Bill 490. Assembly Bill 490 basically simply says that officers, law enforcement, can no longer use any techniques to restrict someone's ability to breathe. Let me say that again. Restricts a person's ability to drink. So you can still, put handcuffs on them, you can still restrain them, but you can never use any method that will restrict or cut off a person's ability to breathe. Because we know when they can't breathe, what happens next? They die at the hands of the people who we entrusted to serve and protect us. And so this bill, Assembly Bill 490, I'm happy to say, has been supported by a number of different groups. But most of all, I'm happy to say and report, Pastor Porter, that the National Network have stepped up to the plate once again and said that we're going to join in with you, we're going to support you, and we're going to stand with you, just like we did Assembly Bill 1196. And so that bill passed the Assembly Public Safety. And I'm happy that that bill is now moving through the legislative process. But we're not stopping there either. We also carrying Assembly Bill 958, Pastor Porter, that will ban police cliques. What do you mean by a police cliques? Well, we call it a police gang. We know in Compton, where I serve as assembly member there, that it was disclosed last year that they had sheriff gangs, that they escalated. They used a use of force on Black and brown people. And so what this bill would do, Assembly Bill 958, it will ban police gangs in police departments and law enforcement in the state of California. And if you are found guilty, you will no longer be a police officer in this state. So it is a defense that you can be terminated as a result. And so we have a number of different bills that's dealing in the space, and I'm happy to be part of the Legislative Black Caucus, who is rallying around me as a chair of the Select Committee on Police Reform, because we've been doing these police hearings, trying to reimagine what law enforcement looks like. We have received over 22 bills dealing with police reform in the state of California. It's moving those bills through the legislative process right now. So I'm happy to report, we heard you, we see you, and we support you, community, because it has risen to the level that we are now championing these bills to really reimagine what law enforcement looks like in the state of California. I'm happy to be a part of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Assembly Member Gipson. You did pretty good following Dr. Weber. She is the standard, but you did pretty good. You came on up.
Amen.
And we're,
Amen.
we're proud to again stand with you in support of AB 490 and AB 958, which sounds like just common sense law to me, just common sense law and for fair policing. I want to go over to spotlight Ms. Sequette Clark. Ms. Sequette Clark, thank you for holding on, and who is a mother of the movement, mother of Stephon Clark, and who's been in this, I guess did not ask for this, asked to be in this role, but has turned her pain into power. And recently, we were in New York together with Reverend Al Sharpton, and it was there that we both found out about the Derek Chauvin, for the guilty verdict of Derek Chauvin for the murder of George Floyd. And I was wondering, what does that mean to you and your family? Do you consider the verdict some form of justice for your family? Your family is actually here with me right now. So I just want you to talk about that and see if there's anything that you hope to come from this.
First of all, let me say thank you for allowing me to be on this panel for police reform. Let me offer Assemblymember Mike Gipson my condolences in the attack or assault on your son. I'm sorry that happens. At IAMSAC Foundation, we firmly believe that before we can bridge the gap between law enforcement and at-risk underserved communities, we have to bridge the gap between community and community to prevent things like that from happening again. So I definitely wanted to acknowledge that. In reference to the Derek Chauvin trial, my family had very mixed emotions about it. I'm more of an optimist. So I believe that we are truly in a new civil rights movement. I've been saying that since day one. And what I know from the previous civil rights movement is that it wasn't one incident that caused a victory for the movement, but there were several incidents, several victories, several triumphs, albeit how small they seem to be. It was all of those things collectively that brought us justice and brought us the desired goal of the movement. So I believe that the same thing is in effect in this movement, where the Derek Chauvin trial and guilty verdict was definitely a victory for this new civil rights movement. In Stephon's case, we didn't have that luxury of having the officers put on trial. So yes, I believe that without Stephon's death, there wouldn't have been a George Floyd. And so with that being said, it was a piece of justice for my son. So my answer is yes. My son, on the other hand, Stephon, believes that it was an accountability and not justice. And I understand where he comes from with that perspective. However, like I said before, we didn't even get the officers in Stephon's case to be held accountable. So I believe that it is a sense of victory for our family. I just want to say about being the CEO of IAMSAC Foundation, my family was catapulted into this fight. I never believed in the justice system. I never believed in voting. I didn't believe in any of this. I didn't believe in city council meetings. I didn't think that those things applied to me until my son was killed, until I was able to meet Dr. Shirley Weber and stand next to her and Governor Newsom when they signed that bill into law. I didn't understand how it affects us in the communities that are underserved and underrepresented until now. And so today, we at IAMSAC Foundation are taking it and making it our goal to further collect data on AB 392 and how it is implemented into each city. I took part in the city council meeting a couple of days ago where the mayor and the city council voted on implementing parts of the policy into Sacramento, parts of AB 392 into Sacramento policy. And a lot of people gave me slack about that, saying that, it wasn't verbatim and it wasn't this or it wasn't that, but there's parts of it that have been implemented, which are small victories. And so I really think that it is going to be our mission now to make sure that it is implemented verbatim in our city and other cities in the state. We are taking up that cause and we are moving forward with it. I appreciate Assemblymember Assembly Member Mike on the 490 and the 958. I will be looking those up. And Dr. Weber, I look forward to working with you as a California Secretary of State. Congratulations. And I'm here. I'm part of the movement, not the moment. And we are going to do our part at IAMSAC Foundation. And don't forget in Sacramento that today is the annual day of giving. So you can go to our website, IAMSACfoundation.com, and be a part of the movement, not the moment, by donating to the cause. Thank you.
Thank you, Sequette. Yeah, IAMSAC.com. That's right.
IAMSACfoundation.com.
IAMSACfoundation.com. Let's go ahead and make sure that we support her and this organization as they move forward. We were happy to be able to support them in a time of need, and happy to be able to remain friends and family in this effort. Listen, she said we are in a new civil rights movement. All right, civil rights movement, and I think that's so apropos. And so I want to ask each of you panelists here in this new civil rights movement, where we saw the guilty verdict of Derek Chauvin for the murder of George Floyd. We saw that charges were brought up on Daunte Wright, and that's what happened in New York. I almost misspoke earlier, but we were in New York together, Sequette and I, and we heard about Daunte Wright murderer being charged in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. We've heard a lot. Where are we now, in this new civil rights movement? We have these verdict, we had these charges, yet on the same day, Ma'Khia Bryant, a 16-year-old African-American girl, was fatally shot by police officers. Nicholas Reardon in Columbus, Ohio. And it seems like the list keeps on going on. Are we making any progress here? Who wants to take that question?
Please.
Okay, so I just want to say, yes, we are making progress. Underneath AB 392, we have 3 officers in California who are being charged, 1 with manslaughter and 2 with murder. So second-degree murder. We have a case in San Diego with Aaron Russell, who killed Richard Bills. We have one in San Leandro, and we have one in Modesto. I know the victim's name was Trevor Sieber, and the officer himself had been previously killed 4 other people of color in the line of duty, and so they're being charged. That's progress, and slow progress is better than no progress. So there are multiple things that we need to look forward, that we have to look forward to, that we're a part of. We have the foot pursuit policy that's been changed since the murder of Stephon Clark. We have the body cam policy that's been changed since the murder of Stephon Clark, and of course AB 392. And then the chokehold policy that was passed, excuse me, after George Floyd. So I believe that there is progress being made.
And I just wanted to chime in and thank you very much, because we are making progress. We are making progress when you have people who are tired of being tired and standing up and speaking truth to power. When you have communities who are saying no more, when you have communities who's willing to take the streets and allow their voices to be heard and speak truth to power and hold people accountable and get involved into the not only the electoral process, but the political process as well. When you look at where we were before, and again, Martha King, gave us a great roadmap in terms of how change comes and what we must do. We can do these things in a nonviolent way, but I think that the fire has been lit. I think that people are expecting us to do these kinds of real reform in our community. Yes, we know that, Sister Bryant, Stephon Clark and Breonna Taylor and Eric Garner, Andrew Brown, those are lives, but we're not going to allow their deaths to be in vain. We're going to take that situation and we're going to run to see what the end is going to be. And the end is going to be, you're going to treat me like a man or a woman, and you're going to respect me. I remember in the civil rights movement, and they had to wear signs. I am a man. Well, damn it, I'm a man too. My boys are men and women as well. We should not have two Americas, one for the just and one for blacks and one for whites. You should treat us equally as people, as humans. We are a whole human. And so I think the clarion call has been made, and I think people are responding in a very aggressive way. And we all know that sometimes change is slow, but it's coming. It's almost like when you walk outside and you can smell the rain before you see it. Well, change is in the air, and we are motivated by change, and we're not stopping. Just because we get these bills passed, just because we can shout hallelujah one time, doesn't mean our work is over. Our work is just beginning.
Amen to Brother Gipson, and also to Sister Clark. We keep saying to ourselves, and we have to remind ourselves that this is not a destination, this is a life journey. And when we think it's a destination and we think we have arrived, it's when we're in trouble. This journey to make sure that African Americans and others are treated justly in this country is a life struggle, that we will always be engaged in it. And and anytime that you're under attack is because you're moving forward. When nothing is happening, then no one is worried about you because you're complacent and you're not doing anything. I always tell folks, nobody throws rocks behind them, they throw them in front of them. And so as we are being attacked, we know that it's because we are moving forward. And every day we're expanding the circle of those who raise their voices. And that's what's important. The fact that your mayor in Sacramento raises his voice is important, because years ago, they never would have raised their voices on our behalf. And so we have to recognize that this is a journey that we're involved in, and it is moving forward, and we can't give up, and we can't give out, and we won't give in. And that's what's important. I mean, when we look at the battle for that King and others were engaged in, those were continuous battles, and they had some setbacks occasionally, and they had to regroup, but they never gave up, and they never believed that they had completely arrived at the destination, that they had to continue to move forward and to do those things that are important. We also have to recognize that the change that we're looking for will not only be in terms of the laws with regards to social justice, but the laws with regards to how this nation exists in terms of keeping African Americans poor, homeless, without property, without access. All those kinds of things are critical to how we have been treated in this country. And we're advocating for that, because those then also becomes the tools for us to move forward. And so we have to make sure that we recognize that. I tell folks, I think probably one of the most powerful bills that I was able to get passed is ethnic studies, the bill 1460, because what's going to happen with that bill is that every student that graduates from our university is going to have to take a course in Black studies or Chicano studies or Native American studies. It is mandated. That's 500,000 students that enrolled in the Cal State University system. And now community colleges trying to figure out how they're going to do the same thing. Because what happens is our continuing struggle is a lack of information about us, that people don't understand the history of how they have used and misused us, how they've taken our land, our property, and our dignity. And when you begin to educate folks about that, you then begin to get to what we really need to get to, which is the heart of this nation. And we haven't gotten there yet. We haven't gotten to the heart and minds of individuals. So keep in mind, this nation has seared its consciousness towards us. For years, it could lynch us from trees. It could basically castrate our men, burn our bodies, let their children look at it, and say somehow or another that this is okay and this is fair. It is not going to switch overnight, this brutality that we've endured, that our families have endured. And so when we look at what happened with George Floyd, and we see a man with his knee on his neck and look like he is not even concerned, with his hands in his pocket, his mind is somewhere else, that is a result of 400 years of dehumanization of African Americans. And we're going to have to change that. And while we can create laws that give us more tools to fight with and to make sure that there's some justice and fairness in the process, we also need to deal with the minds and hearts of these people that we're trying to change, that they are going to have to change their perception of us. The fact that I think that when we listen to our attorney Crump talk about the fact that, that these folks can be kind and gentle to those who just murdered people, is because they have the heart and mind to understand that these are their people, that these are like their children who have made a mistake. But when they see us, even in our most humble positions of praying. They don't see the human being, they see the criminal, they see the viciousness, they see the animal, they see all those kinds of things that they've been taught to believe. And so we're going to have to work hard. And so we're making progress because all of our legislation is beginning to deal with that. We've got legislation on implicit bias and retraining individuals and all those things. And those things which never would have been passed before are now. People admit that there's something called implicit bias, where before they didn't believe in it. They didn't want to deal with racism. They didn't want to deal with implicit bias, and they didn't admit it. So at least the first step in getting rid of stuff is you have to admit that it exists. And we see legislation now that is addressing those issues of misinformation, bias, poor quality education, all those things. And that's why it's so important that we are organized in NAN and others, and that we're ready to take advantage of this challenge and this new wave that's coming in this new civil rights movement, that we are prepared in our leadership and in our membership to basically respond to those issues, because we're raising them. And finally, people are saying, maybe what you're saying is correct. We need to take advantage of that moment.
So true, so insightful. Thank you, Dr. Weber, for those words. And you're so right, ethnic studies, them learning about us, and they won't be questioning reparations, right? You know, they know they owe us. They know it owe us 400 years of free labor. Praise God. So listen, we're attacking this thing all over socially. We see it, we're attacking it education-wise. We're attacking this at the city level, you know, through the efforts of the Clark family and other organizations to make sure to put pressure on the city council to follow the law that was passed on statewide, AB 392. Now we see that same pressure happening at the national level with the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which addresses a lot of the issues that we've been working on here in California in the legislature. So with the banning of chokeholds, also qualified immunity, and other components like that. Again, we have introduced here, you all have introduced here in California and working on it right now. How important is it for us to get this off of the Senate's desk and have them sign this into law? I'm going to ask our legislators and or anybody who's going to open it up to the panel.
Well, I would just like to say that it is absolutely critical that we do everything we can to make sure that these bills gets on the governor's desk, and then making sure that the governor is in fact understand how important this is to the Black community. And I think this governor does. I think that we do the hard, heavy lifting now by getting it out of both houses and onto the governor's desk. I think the governor will certainly recognize that, one, this is life-changing. This is landmark legislation that needs to be changed. And I believe that he hears the voices of the people who have been subjected to abuse. And again, as a former police officer, but also taking a quote from Dr. Weber, we have bad apples. And not only do we want to rid the departments of the bad apples, but if we have to uproot the tree and get rid of the tree and plant a new tree, then we're going to plant a new tree so we can bear good fruit in our community, so that we don't have to have these implicit biases and people target us just because of the color of our skin. And so again, I absolutely am convinced that we do the heavy work now through this legislative process and get it on the governor's desk. The governor will in fact be motivated to sign these bills into law. And as we reimagine what law enforcement looks like in the state of California, is when we can breathe a sigh of relief. In my bill, 490, I want to make sure that everybody can breathe. Even if you're in custody, you have a right to breathe. George Floyd, 28 times, I can't breathe. No one should have to go through that in this state, in this country. And I'll close by simply saying this, Dr. Porter, as you have said it over and over again since when we've been talking, it really relies on the federal level. We have to have the justice packet that Karen Bass and others, now they did the heavy work and got it through out of Congress. Now it's on the United States Senate side. We need a hearing and we need a vote, and we need a vote now. And if it gets real close, that's why we sent the Black woman to Washington, D.C. as vice president to break the tie and pull it over towards the president, so the president can sign these bills into law. We want it, and we want it now.
You know, you are, and folks should stay focused on these bills because it's really critical that they're passed, that we get these bills out. California has set the standard and doesn't need to go backward. And part of that standard is that we have had a partnership in the Senate with the Senate leadership and with the Assembly leadership and the governor. And so that when we've done the heavy lifting and the hard work, and those of you who have been knocking on doors and walking the halls of the Capitol and calling and all those kinds of things, you know, we've had a partner in this governor who has been agreeable to signing those bills, and sometimes even calling and helping to get those bills over the line. My bill AB 3070 that dealt with the jury selections, you know, fortunately for us, the governor helped to get it over the line of those who may have been hesitant in doing that. So it becomes important that we recognize it. But I want to emphasize the fact that it's the total picture. Keep in mind that we need these bills signed and we need to get them over the line. And you need to make that known to everybody who is in the Capitol, who's in the Senate and the Assembly, as well as the governor. And we need to protect that because the outside folks don't want many of these things done. And as a result, they're attacking members, not only of the Assembly, but we're having folks attack our registrar of voters. We're having folks who are trying to recall not only our governor, but also recall members of the Board of Supervisors, recall some of the registrar of voters. I mean, there's enough force out there, and our community needs to be aware of all of it, so that we protect those individuals, that we're saying to those folks who don't want this to happen, you know, who's saying, who put together petitions to remove individuals, that we are aware of who you are, and that we're fighting back, and that we're not going to let these things happen. Because listen, if one person goes down who's an ally of ours, that tree that falls in the forest is like reverberates across the state and the nation, you know. And that's why it was so important when I fought, even when I was at the university or when I was on the school board and I had principals who were fighting for our kids. I told those principals, before they get you, they got to get me. And I meant that. Because if that one principal who was fighting for justice in the classroom for all of our students was fired or demoted by the district or something of that nature, that meant no other principal would raise his or her voice on our behalf. Right. And I had to say that to 2 or 3 principals who were fighting for us. And that is what we have to say also to those around us, is, hey, you think you're coming after so-and-so? We can build a hedge around this person. We can fight this issue. We understand what you're trying to do in terms of not just going after the person, but creating fear in the Assembly, creating fear in the Senate. I'm telling you, when I began my bills and 593 and others, people were afraid. They realized what I was doing was right and just, but they were afraid. They were afraid that if they voted for me or voted with this bill, that you would not be present for them when it came to election time, that you would not stand with them when these things happen. And so we have to assure those who are fighting for us, who are signing bills for us, that if they come after you for recall or take you out of the loop of education, that you're going to be there with them and fight for them. Because that is critical. Because there's some folks who stand up for you that's crazy like me no matter what. But there are others who were looking for the right win at the right time. And if it looks like they can't get the win in that direction, they will not do it. And so therefore they need your support. They need to know that you're there, and we need to take these bills and make sure these bills are symbols of what we want, and then fight for those who fought for us, so that they will know that this is a just cause, and that we will not abandon them, that we're not just here for one item. We're here for justice completely in every aspect of life, and it covers it all. And that's why I tell folks, this is a journey for life. This is not something that you do. I often say in the Assembly that justice and equality and those kinds of things are rare flowers that have to be attended to every day, have to be watered, have to be given sunshine, have to be nurtured. But hatred, discrimination, alienation, all those kinds of things are weeds, and they grow best in neglect. And so when you stop paying attention, those things, it's like your house. If you plant some gorgeous flowers and life is wonderful, and you don't go outside for another 4 months, when you go outside, you're not going to even find the flower. Right. You may not even be able to open your door. because those weeds have grown. And that's what happens. We forget that we're in a journey for life, and that this garden that we want that's so wonderful for justice has to be cared for, nurtured for, and every small detail has to be attended to. And that's what I want us to continue to remind ourselves, that we have to pay attention. The kids say we have to stay woke in order to get the job done. And that is so true. So true. Thank you.
So true. My goodness.
Can I say something really quick? I just wanted to.
Then I have a question just for you too, Sequette.
Okay, but I wanted to piggyback on what Dr. Weber and Assemblymember Gipson said, and offer the support of IAMSAC Foundation. What we bring to the table is that we have the grassroots approach. We are in the neighborhoods, we are in the communities, we have an alliance with the people because we're still a part of the people on the grounds, you know. And so I believe that if we can be of support, I believe we can be of support by offering the community support that you're talking about to rally and hedge and form the hedge of protection around the people who are putting their careers at stake, basically fighting for what's right. And so we definitely want to be of support. I put my email in the chat for the other panelists, and I look forward to working with you.
That's great. That's great. And you're so right. The clarion call is made that we need to support our legislators and leaders who are doing the job, leading for us, standing in the gap for us. We need to give them that support so that they know that, you know, when election comes up, we are part of the total process, right? The total process to keep them in office. And speaking of elections coming up, Sequette, there's an election that you're familiar with. We're here in the city of Sacramento that involves Anne Marie Schubert, who is running for California Attorney General. Do you think reopening the investigation of the police who killed your son should be an issue in the Attorney General's election? What do you think about that?
I think that anyone representing the city of Sacramento, as well as the state of California, needs to push for the officers in Stephon Clark's case to be held accountable in his murder. It was such a horrific, traumatic incident that they made a law about it. Okay, the mayor has given us a day of reflection. There's parks and playgrounds named after my son. Yes, to answer your question, I don't want to get emotional. Yes, to answer your question, I believe that that should be one of the top points or situations that the new Attorney General should be dealing with. That should be on the top of the list when it comes to new items that they will deal with, and not just use that. You know, the new Attorney General. I just was in a meeting bringing these points up to him I forget his name, I'm sorry, but bringing his points up to him. And the thing is that for me to have to say it or remind you, how serious are you about police reform? If you don't know that the fact that the officers are still working for Sacramento Police Department that killed Stephon, if you're not aware of that, or if that doesn't bother you, then you're not the right person for the job. So most definitely, I think that Anne Marie Schubert needs to get on up out of there. No one wants her there. She's her trying to leave district attorney and run for attorney general is just absurd to me. I think that we need to get focused and get her up out of there and have someone in the attorney general seat that is going to have those officers retried, have those officers tried. So.
Thank you for answering that question. I know that it's tough and a little challenging, and but we believe correctly and stand with you in your belief there. They need to make sure that that be a priority in this election right there. We are near time, and with that, I just want to thank Dr. Shirley Weber. I want to thank Assembly Member Mike Gipson, Mother Sequette Clark, and Attorney Benjamin Crump, who kicked us off on this panel, for your insights, your inspiration, your words, and then especially for your work that you're doing. I want you to know that here in Sacramento, California, the National Action Network, our chapter will always stand with you, beside you, alongside you, however we need to do that to support you in the tireless efforts that you're doing. I want to give you guys a moment to just have a final words and closing statements from each one of you before we actually close this panel. Who would like to start?
I'll start because I'm going to have to get off the call in a minute, probably for everybody else. But just want to thank you. I know that I thank you in the Genesis Church, not only for this panel, but for your leadership in Sacramento, that you're always present, you're there, the services, the resources that the community needs are here. And you're living in the tradition of the Black church, which is more than just a Sunday morning, Sunday school meeting. It is a 24/7 experience. And we have historically relied upon our preachers, whether it was Nat Turner or whomever, to lead us in ways that others had difficulty finding a way out. And so I just want to thank you. I want to thank all of those who have helped me over the years. I've always counted on you to be the force, the army behind the movement. And when people ask me, how did you do this? You're so courageous. And I always tell them I had an army. I had an army of Black folks and others who believed in what I was trying to do and have always believed in me since I was a little girl. And so I thank the church, I thank the community for its love, for its support. And it's that love and support that we have that pushes us forward, those of us who've been granted the opportunity to be in places that others may not be able to go. I want to thank you for that. Thank you for this. And the journey continues, the battle continues, but it's good to know that we've got folks like you who've been listening and those who are on this panel who will continue the fight. And like I said, moving to Secretary of State gave me additional responsibilities and what have you, but it has not made me lose my passion in my heart. It just gave me a bigger platform in which I could raise these issues on your behalf. Thank you so very much. And I look forward to your campaign and look forward to having you on the floor of the Assembly, making those issues and joining the Black Caucus and doing the things that we know need to happen. Thank you for your courage and your commitment. And Ms. Clark, thank you always for being the spirit and the smile through the storm. This is a journey that, as you say, you didn't volunteer for, but you're here. And thank, of course, my good preacher, Mr. Gipson, who's out there constantly raising the issues with the Black Caucus and the members of the Black Caucus who are pushing these bills forward. With your wind beneath their wings, we are accomplishing great things, and we know we will continue to do that. So I want to thank you for having it today. Thank you so very much. I appreciate all of you.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Sequette?
Okay, so yeah, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Porter, for having me on this panel, for standing up and showing out as the president of Sacramento National Action Network. It's been my honor to work with you, to be a part of what you're doing and for you to be a part of what we're doing. I'd like to thank everyone on the panel. And I look forward to working with you all. I look forward to us being the faces and the pushers in this movement. I really believe that we are changing laws, that we are changing our city, our state, and our nation. And I just am honored and humbled. So thank you. And don't forget to go to IAMSACFoundation.com.
I was about to tell you to go ahead and put that website out there again.
www.IAMSACFoundation.com. We also have a Facebook page, an Instagram page, and they all will link up to where you can be able to be a part of Giving Today in Sacramento. And thank you, Publicly Assembly Member Mike Gipson, for immediately jumping on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are you going to close the closer?
Well, thank you very much, Pastor Porter, again, for your leadership. And we look forward to you allowing your voice to be heard on the red carpet as a state senator representing the Sacramento area. And we speak that into the atmosphere and we claim it done. Also, what we want to do is we believe strongly that we're on the right path for change and we're not letting our foot up off this pedal. We're going to continue on. I also want to thank Pastor Porter, not only for the panelists who Ms. Clark and Dr. Shirley Weber, but also I want to thank the citizens journalists those who use their iPhones, those who are out there taking the footage, that we would never know what's going on. It had not been for them being courageous enough to take the footage that is now on social media platforms, that are now, that the news media is now believing of what's happening in our community, and exposing the bad apples in these departments in the state of California and across this country. I want to say that we are more determined to do the work that needs to be done. Understand it's taken us 400 years. And now we're starting to see some kind of manifestation of all the work that we did. I cannot be the great grandson of a lady who was born into slavery to be in this position, who had to fight and not do something to affect positively the change and speak about the injustice and also respond to it in a legislative manner. I cannot do that. And I refuse to be that kind of person, to stand up with a loud voice. I do it for my great-grandmother. I do it for my parents and for everyone in this state. We cannot have two Californians. We cannot have two Americas. And we're going to fight, because now we're in the fight and we're not letting up until we win. So thank you very much, Dr. Porter. Thank National Action Network for doing all that you can do and being with us in this fight and this struggle. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's thank again Attorney Benjamin Crump, Dr. Shirley Weber, Assembly Member Mike Gipson, and Ms. Sequette Clark. Amen. Let's make sure we support each and every one of them in their efforts. Thank you again for your words, and thank you for being a part of this panel. Next up, we have at 1 p.m. the national poll release of what Black voters think. So we're going to dive even deeper into the numbers on how Black voters think and how we can maximize and leverage that vote. You don't want to miss this. It's going to be a powerful, powerful panel. And then after that, this evening, we're going to have our special guest, Martin Luther King III, the eldest son of the great legendary civil rights leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., will be with us at 7 p.m. for a conversation about civil rights and this new civil rights movement. So go ahead, get you a piece of chicken and some salad, and make sure you tune right back in at 1 p.m. You don't want to miss this great conference. See you soon.
Do you have a college degree? Are you looking for a positive change in your life? Maybe teaching is for you. With the current number of teachers retiring, the opportunity has never been better to become a teacher. Since 1989, Fortune School of Education has been helping future educators prepare for and receive their teaching credentials. Our Fortune staff and instructors will guide you through the entire process. Our teacher credentialing program is affordable. You'll earn while you learn, and you'll finish debt-free. To find out more, visit Fortune School of Education online or call today.
Here, we're all in. All in for fun. All in for getting things done. And all in for the good stuff that makes our lives better. That's why SMUD is all in for all electric homes, businesses, and vehicles. Going all electric is better for the environment, safer for you, and costs less than natural gas, too. As your community-owned, not-for-profit electric service, we have rebates to get you started. So go all in. Go electric. Visit smud.org/goelectric.
Rocket ship Walkie-2 at Rising Stars Academy. We use a rotational model at rocket ship schools. So that means I change classes 4 times a day.
Unlike traditional elementary schools, students at Rocketship rotate between content blocks every day. This model allows us to improve student outcomes by developing teachers who specialize in either STEM or humanities. During their daily STEM block, students learn fundamental math concepts, develop problem-solving and reasoning skills, and build mastery by applying these concepts and skills across a range of contexts and problem sets. In our humanities block, students learn the building blocks of literacy, develop reading comprehension skills, receive individualized support during guided reading, and learn writing skills and strategies. We also integrate social studies and history into our content to build student curiosity and broaden their knowledge base.
Not only do our students rotate outside the classroom, but they also rotate within the classroom. It's really important that students are able to rotate within guided reading because they're able to move at their own pace and master the material if they want to at a slower rate or a faster.
SMUD is your community-owned, not-for-profit electric utility, and we're committed to the health and well-being of our employees, customers, and community. We know how challenging times are right now, including everything from suddenly homeschooling our kids to simply paying the bills. That's why SMUD is continuing to deliver safe, reliable, and uninterrupted power, and doing what we can to make things a little easier for you. We won't disconnect power if you're unable to pay your bill through June 30th, 2021 at the earliest. You'll still have to pay your bill, but you'll have some extra time to figure things out. We're also offering flexible payment arrangements. Call us or visit us online to set up a billing plan if you're having difficulty paying your SMUD bill. We've made it easier to apply and qualify for our energy assistance rates, which provides a discount on your SMUD bill based on your income. If you've recently found yourself out of work, we've waived the need to show 2 months of income, and we'll estimate it from the California Employment Development Department. And for those of us who are struggling to adapt to having the kids home and engage them with meaningful activities, we've built a dedicated education page where caretakers can find STEM lesson plans, videos, and easy lab-like activities focused on energy and sustainability. To learn more, visit smud.org/coronavirus. Please be safe and stay well.
It's time to watch the drama with your family. Or you could share your family drama on T-Mobile. Share the hardcore trash talk.
I hope you got a chin strap for that wig.
I'ma knock the taste out your mouth.
Distant relatives will see every highlight and ugly lowlight. With T-Mobile 5G, you could call in a ringer like star tight end Travis Kelce.
Mama, it's not an Anderson. There's a lot you don't know about this family. What?
Together, you and Travis Kelce would put on a display of speed and power that crushed the competition, just like T-Mobile 5G.
Somebody get him help.
I can't feel my feet.
And family and friends would celebrate as you scored the winning touchdown. Don't trust your family drama to just any network. T-Mobile is the leader in 5G.
Mama? 5G, it works in the end zone.
Return to in-person learning at Fortune School. We've taken steps to ensure your child's safety. We've installed UV lights in every classroom to disinfect the air. Masks and hand sanitizer will be provided, and desks are socially distant. We're a network of tuition-free public charter schools focused on closing the African American achievement gap. To learn more, RSVP for an enrollment meeting at fortuneschool.us/RSVP/. Fortune School, inspiring leaders.
My name is Jade. I have a K4 student that goes to Rocketship Transportation. My son has autism. What makes it special to me for my child is that it doesn't make him feel different than any other kid. And I love how like the curriculum is like based around his needs. I love that. And he's in a regular classroom. He's not in a special needs classroom. He's making eye contact now. He's allowing people to touch his hands and not wrists. He's more social. He can actually like pronounce words and saying like 2 to 3 word sentences now. If you are looking for a school that is basically very involved, very cautious about your child, thinks about like this, like their safety, their progress, their education, and how to like move them on to the next step to make them ready for the next grade, like this will be the school for them. Rocketship is like its own little village where everyone knows everybody, and I love that about it.
My belief that our students need windows and mirrors. A window is someone that you can get diverse perspective from. Our students need mirrors as well. Having someone stand in front of you who may resemble where you come from really has a lasting impact.
It gives our students a sense of, if Mr. Gasaway, if Mr. Lewis can do it, I can too.
Just by having one African-American male educator in elementary school reduces the probability of African-American male students dropping out of high school by 39%.
What we want to make sure that we do is just provide them with that visual of what they could be and even more. We see you.
I know that you guys can do this.
We are you.
We have to think about how we can add in all the details that we got.
And you can be even better than what we are.
We're ready.
Hell yeah. Been looking forward to this.
Modulating frequencies now.
It's time. Let's light it up.
Are you ready, Neville? Pre-check. Check. Check. Okay, Neville.
In T-minus 3, 2, 1. Ready to launch. Hit the button.
Here we go.
It's working. It's working.
Nationwide 5G is live.
Yeah. And we're just getting started.
Wait until they see what's next. Soon, my friend. Very soon.
Are you a credentialed teacher who wants to make a difference in your community? Fortune School specializes in success for our teachers as well as our students because we know when our teachers succeed, our students succeed. To join the Fortune School team, call or visit our website today.
My name is Kaylin Banglai, and I am a walk-a-chip, walk-a-teal at Rising Stars Academy. We use a rotational model at walk-a-chip schools. So that means I change classes 4 times a day.
Unlike traditional elementary schools, students at Rocketship rotate between content blocks every day. This model allows us to improve student outcomes by developing teachers who specialize in either STEM or humanities. During their daily STEM block, students learn fundamental math concepts, develop problem-solving and reasoning skills, and build mastery by applying these concepts and skills across a range of contexts and problem sets. In our humanities block, students learn the building blocks of literacy, develop reading comprehension skills, receive individualized support during guided reading, and learn writing skills and strategies. We also integrate social studies and history into our content to build student curiosity and broaden their knowledge base.
Not only do our students rotate outside the classroom, but they also rotate within the classroom. It's really important that students are able to rotate within guided reading because they're able to move at their own pace and master the material if they want to at a slower rate or a faster rate.
Culture is important in Fortune School's educational program because it sets the tone for learning. Our culture is defined by the 5 pillars and the 3 rules. Our 5 pillars are pillar number 1, high expectation, pillar number 2, choice and commitment, pillar number 3, more time, pillar number 4, focus on results, and pillar number 5, citizenship. Our 3 rules are very simple: listen, respect, and work hard.
Rule number 1, rule number 2, rule number 3, work hard.
Culture is set by our staff. Our staff is to model what it looks like, and they're to also set high expectations for our scholars. Our scholars will exemplify top scholar behavior based on our staff's actions. That is what defines our school culture at Fortune School.